A show that has everything you could ever ask for. Ladders, tables, poker tables, horses, pools. It's AEW's Double or Nothing. Alright, let's talk about AEW's Double or Nothing. I'm recording this as soon as the show went off the air because I want all of these crazy things that just happened on the show to be fresh in my mind. But unfortunately for me, I have to go all the way back to the beginning, and I cannot do a 20-minute video talking specifically about the Stadium Stampede Match, also known as the greatest wrestling match in the history of pro wrestling. You have your, as my good friend Big E would say, you have your 20-minute classics. You have your 5-star matches. Me? I want the Stadium Stampede Match. Okay, let's talk about the show. The show started with the casino ladder match. Of course, this is a match that took elements from last year's Casinos Battle Royale and incorporated them into a bonkers ladder match. Let me tell you something. I think AEW actually tapped into something fantastic with this casino ladder match. I like the idea of it. I like the fact that the night competitors do not start at the same time, so it allows people to have their shines and have their moments, but when everybody is in the ring, things can get even more crazy. I like the fact that they left the spot empty and they had a surprise, and that surprise was actually a shocking revelation, a wrestler that we were not expecting. Everything about the ladder match was fantastic. Darby Allin nearly killed himself, of course, but I think at the end of the day, it paid off a story that I was not really understanding on AEW Dynamite, and it was the story of Taz offering help to Darby Allin, and Darby being like, I appreciate it, but leave me alone. And Taz took offense to that because Taz was trying to help. And at first I was like, I hope they're not trying to turn Darby Allin just because he's rejecting Taz. No. They turned Taz, and Taz brought out Brian Cage, the Swolverine, former Impact Wrestling World Champion. Brian Cage came down to the ring. He took out everybody. He climbed up the ladder, grabbed the poker chip, and he's next in line for the AEW World Championship. A strong way to kick off the show, a shocking debut, a wrestler that has a lot of potential, and I think most importantly of all is a wrestler that was not linked to the Elite, was not linked to the other company, and I was talking with a friend about this recently. I was saying well, who do you want next in line as a superstar to take a shot at the championship? And there were a lot of options, but at the end of the day, you were like, well, I don't want Matt Hardy. He's a former from the other company, and you kind of don't want to go the road of you already had Hager, you already had Lee, you have Mox as the champion, you had Jericho. They're all stems from the other company, so it's nice to see somebody that has absolutely no experience in New York, as they used to call it in the 80s, have the opportunity to be in a world title program in All Elite Wrestling. Brian Cage could be huge, metaphorically and literally, in All Elite Wrestling. A surprise banger of a match between Jungle Boy and MJF. I kind of expected this match to go in two directions, and it's not because either of these men are bad. I just expected it to perhaps be shorter. I expected it to perhaps be more of a statement to MJF. But if there's a statement to be made in this match, is that we have to take Jungle Boy as a singles competitor more seriously, because Jungle Boy put on a hell of a match tonight with MJF. Both of these kids are the future. They're the same age as I am, and I am not in that type of shape. I am not that talented that I watched the show tonight eating a bunch of Doritos and drinking a ton of soda. So I feel bad for myself. Back to the wrestling. The wrestling was really good. Jungle Boy took MJF to the limit, and the final moments of the match actually were so greatly presented, because MJF, they started trading roll-ups, and MJF gets the surprise victory via roll-up over Jungle Boy. But it means that Jungle Boy actually managed to avoid MJF hitting his finisher on him. It wasn't a decisive victory. It was sort of quote-unquote a fluke victory, a surprise victory. It makes Jungle Boy look a little bit more important. It elevates both men to the point where one of them lost, but in reality neither of them lost. And I know that's cliche to say, but everybody in this match won because of how look they good in the ring. TNT Championship was on the line next between Cody and Lance Archer. I kept, if you've watched all of our AEW recaps here on the space, you're gonna see that I've been having these internal conflict of like not knowing what they were going to do. I didn't know if they were going to give Cody the big win with no crowd in the arena, or if they were gonna just put the title on Archer to cement how much of a big monster he is. I actually wanted Archer to move on to the World Championship picture. Obviously, that's not happening because of the Casino Battle Royal, but I did want him to move on to the World Championship picture, and hopefully we'll see it in the future. So it was this big fight in which should Cody win without an audience, and we don't get that pop. Should Archer defeat Cody and have like the evil person that has been harassing his wife win? Cody won. Cody won the unfinished version of the TNT Championship. I have to be very honest with you. When I first saw the TNT Championship, I didn't mind it. It looked fine. It was okay. It's the TNT logo. It makes sense. You put the logo on the network on front. And then when I saw it in more detail, I saw that it has the AEW logo on top. And then Tony Schiavone explained that due to the pandemic, the championship could not be completed in time. That it was supposed to be gold. There was supposed to be gold plating on the championship. And I would assume that will make the championship pop out a little bit more. It's going to look a little bit better. At the time, though, we have to commend them. And this is the championship we have. And it doesn't look that bad, In all honesty, I didn't have a problem with it. Some people like to react very... they like to react very strongly towards championship belts on the internet, on any type of social media. It's like, it's fine. It looks fine. Just leave it alone. Eventually they'll get it fixed when this is all over, and then we'll have yet another opinion on it. Now back to the match. The match was actually a little longer than I expected it as well, but not like MJF versus Jungle Boy was a little longer than I expected it in a good way, and this one may have been a little longer than I expected it in a bad way. And now let me tell you something. I have a problem with the way the officials just let stuff happen. Am I the only one here that cares about the rules? It's just like in the two big single titles matches that we had tonight, we saw a lot of, he's outside, they're brawling through the arena, they're throwing each other this and they're throwing each other that, and you're like, the referee should try to get a little bit more control on this match, right? So the match was a little longer. Cody gets the big win. There was a confusing moment near the end where Jake the Snake went backstage and he brought out a bag which supposedly had the snake inside. A very animal heavy show that we had tonight. And Mike Tyson kind of got up on the stage and he was like, oh, I think I'm going to punch you. And Jake was like, no, don't do that. And it was just like this very confusing moment that eventually led to Cody Rhodes winning. It wasn't a bad match. It was just like perhaps a little bit longer than it should have been. And it had a confusing ending. But we got there. We got to the goal. Cody Rhodes won the big one. He gets the TNT Championship. He gets to be the first ever TNT Champion. And it's all good business. It's all good business in my opinion. Also, before we move on, Shawn Spears came out for his quote-unquote match with Dustin Rhodes, and I need a minute. I need a minute to process this because this was bad. This was a bad, this was a very bad match. Shawn Spears got stripped down to his underwear, his bare ass exposed. He had some sort of, I don't know whose face it was, but he had a face on the front of his boxer briefs. And then he got beaten by Dustin. And wow, that was tough to watch. I don't know exactly what the point of that was on the show. A show that was already 4 hours long did not need this match on the card. And I know that this match probably won't do any difference on the timing of the show because, this was like a 5-minute thing. But, those 5 minutes could have been used for other more important stuff that could actually make sense instead of whatever it is that they did with Shawn Spears. And also, let's bench him. I think Shawn Spears needs to be, benched for a little bit. Let's sit him down. Let's put him on the bench. Let's reassess our strategy. There was a story of him trying to find a tag team partner. Maybe that could work out. let me not see a singles Shawn Spears match for a little bit, and let's take a break from him. The Women's Championship match was the show stealer of the night. Nyla Rose and Hikaru Shida put on a hell of a no disqualification match. And this is where it's so important to lay out your rules before the match started, because this was actually a no disqualification match. And the ladies live up to that moniker, brawling around the ring and using all sorts of weapons and using tables and throwing each other around. Eventually, we crown our new AEW Women's Champion in Hikaru Shida. It was a hell of a match. Just a straight up banger that I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. And in this match, I enjoyed all of the brawling around ringside because it is a no disqualification match. But when we get to the World Championship match, you're gonna see that I'm gonna have a little problem with how the officials are behaving, something I already brought up during the TNT Championship match. As a little side note, Chris Statlander and Penelope Ford did a hell of a match as well for the women's division. Of course, Dr. Britt Baker came out with an injury from this past Wednesday's episode of AEW Dynamite, so that led us to replacing her in the match with Penelope Ford. Penelope Ford has been getting better and better in the ring. I really like watching her perform in AEW, and I think they've done a hell of a job showcasing her. I think it's time for her to start racking up some wins. Obviously, Statlander is a little bit higher on the card, so she got the win tonight. But now that we have a new women's champion that's a face rather than a heel, we're going to see more faces perhaps race to the top. That includes Statlander. We're going to see more heels racing to the top, and that should include Penelope Ford and, of course, Dr. Britt Baker when she comes back. And Britt Baker, of course, is not completely out of action. She's going to be Wednesday on AEW Dynamite explaining what the extent of her injury is. Hopefully, she's not out for a long time because she's one of the best characters AEW has around. Okay, so then we get to the World Championship match. And like I've talked before about how, and not only me, but I think almost every wrestling reviewer or commentator or whatever you want to call us, we've talked about how we've had a problem with Brody Lee's character and how it has developed. I think Brody Lee was the perfect dance partner for Jon Moxley tonight. They put on a good match. My problem with the match wasn't exactly Jon Moxley related or Brody Lee related. As a matter of fact, I think both of those men worked their asses off tonight. I just wish that the match would have been promoted as a no disqualification match, because that's what it was. If you're going to put an official in a singles match and then the official is just going to decide not to enforce the rules, at least have the decency to tell us exactly why the official is not enforcing the rules. But to have them outside the ring for up to 3 minutes, just running around ringside, just throwing each other stuff, hitting each other with props, and the referee's just like standing like 10 feet away going like, hey, guys, stop it. The best way to describe it was, and I described it this way on Twitter, it's like when you're out in public and you see a child that's misbehaving and one of the parents is scrolling on their phone going like, Randy, stop, you're bothering them, I'm sorry. And then they continue to scroll and the child continues to raise hell. That's exactly what it came about. It just seemed like the official was very incompetent. He kept yelling at them to get back to the ring, but he never once started the count. I don't think that in the entire duration of the match, which was like 20 minutes, I don't think I've heard the official once going like, get back to the ring and I'm going to count you out. 1, 2. At no point during the match did the officials say, get back in the ring or I'm going to disqualify you. Don't hit him with a stage prop or I'm going to disqualify you. Just the official just went along with it, and he followed them around ringside, and he's like, oh, you're going to throw him through a table? Yeah, sure. You're going to hit him with the barricade? Yeah, sure. Hey, get back in the ring. No? Okay, whatever. And it's like, if you're going to go with that type of match, you can't just say the referee's letting them have a lot of leeway because he doesn't want to win the match by disqualification. Because it's not that. The referee's letting them do whatever the hell they want because he doesn't have control of the match. That's what it seems like on the side of the audience. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with the performance of Brody Lee or Jon Moxley. They put on a hell of a show. They put on a hell of a match. And the ending was a very satisfying ending. That paradigm shift through the stage. Lee kicks out a couple of times. And Brody Lee eventually has to be choked out by Moxley because there's no way that he's going to stay down for a 3 count. It makes sense. I don't know how I feel about going for blood during a pandemic, but it makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the referee's behavior in what is supposed to be a singles match with countouts and disqualifications. If you want a no DQ match, advertise a no DQ match. And speaking of no disqualification match, the main event. The Stadium Stampede. Otherwise known as the greatest wrestling match in the history of the universe. Chris Jericho's Inner Circle, The Elite, one-on-one. Wow. Let's start out with the entrances. The entrances, they got football entrances announced by Justin Roberts, who of course has been staying home due to the ongoing pandemic, but it was nice to hear his voice back on the show. We got football entrances with the Jaguars cheerleaders, their drum players, fireworks, smoke. My favorite part of the whole thing was how the Inner Circle actually used football uniforms, because they're a cohesive unit. They're an actual team. So they wear uniforms. They were wearing the uniforms with significant numbers, their last names on the back. It looked fan-freaking-tastic. And then the match starts. The match starts without Hangman Adam Page. He's nowhere to be seen, right? The match begins, and Matt is like, he'll get here. Just ring the bell or the whistle, because there was no bell. Aubrey Edwards had a whistle. Aubrey Edwards, she whistles, and the match begins, and Hangman Adam Page walks in on a goddamn horse. He walked in on a... and he stayed on a horse for a long time. He chased Sammy Guevara off the field in a horse. And he went around the TIAA field, like the hallways, in a horse. There's no way I could explain to you how good this match was. Matt Jackson did a moonsault off of the goal line. That was a thing. Again, Hangman eventually abandoned his horse and he went drinking on the stadium bar because, of course, Ortiz hit Kenny Omega or Matt Hardy. I don't remember well. Kenny Omega or Matt Hardy got hit with pocket sand by Ortiz. The stadium has a pool. I don't know why. And Matt Hardy, of course, we know that he has the Lake of Reincarnation in the Hardy compound in Cameron, North Carolina. But like I said on Twitter, if you try hard enough, any body of water will become the Lake of Reincarnation. So Matt Hardy did his costume changes by being tossed in the pool. Santana and Ortiz, how do I put this? Tried to murder Matt Hardy by drowning him. And Hardy kept coming back as different versions of himself. Eventually, Hardy duct taped Santana to a wheelchair and tossed Ortiz inside an ice machine, or I think it's backwards. And that was it. They were out. Chris Jericho challenged the play with a flag. He threw a flag on the field and he challenged the play because he thought Aubrey Edwards was trying to screw him out of the match. Matt Jackson got called out for excessive celebration in the goal line after, get this, he started to hit Northern Lights suplexes on Sammy Guevara from one end of the field to the other. And he got the touchdown, so he started to celebrate. No, he got called out by the official. The official ate a super kick for that, by the way. And then, eventually, the way this works was every member of the Inner Circle got taken out in different areas. So Santana and Ortiz, they got taken out by the pool area. Jake Hager got taken out in the bar by Hangman. He found Hangman in the bar. He turned into this huge brawl that led to Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega sharing a drink. Omega doesn't drink, so Omega drank milk. Whole milk. Just whole milk. Like a gross-ass person. And some of that whole milk got into Hangman's whiskey. And then Hangman drank it. And we love Hangman Page here on the wrestling space. But dude, maybe it's time to seek help. Back in the field, the match continues and it all boils down to our favorite wrestler on the wrestling space, Sammy Guevara. Again, you don't need to know how much we love Sammy Guevara here in the space, because I say it every single week. But I think it bears to be said how incredible it is that last year, when the company was launching, Sammy Guevara was in the opening match. No, not really the opening match, the pre-show match before the actual main card started. And tonight, he was the star of the main event because he was the last man standing of the Inner Circle. So that means that the entire Elite turned their attention to Sammy Guevara. And then he got to meet the new drone by Matt Hardy, which is Neo 1. Neo stands for something, but I don't remember right now. And then Sammy Guevara ate a huge one-wing angel from 15 feet in the air through a table or like a big structure of wood. The ref, Avery Edwards, took out a ladder. She climbed to the structure, counted the 3, and the Elite finally defeat the Inner Circle in a rivalry that started when AEW Dynamite launched and lasted, supposedly, until tonight. The greatest wrestling match I have ever seen. I don't think I've ever been as satisfied. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard watching a match. It had the perfect amount of regular action and all-out hilarious comedy. I think that the thing about this Elite group of boys that have been being the Elite for so long, getting together with somebody as good as Chris Jericho and as good as everybody in the Inner Circle, is that they managed to find the right balance of comedy, real wrestling, and real story, and bring it all together to give us a 1 hour long, hilarious, but also incredible match. And I think that deserves all of the stars, all of the applause. We didn't know what the Stadium Stampede was before. We know now. And honestly, I'm glad I do, because that was worth the price of admission. The match, like I said, the show went almost 4 hours. It was a very long show. But when we got to the Stadium Stampede, I had so much fun that by the time the match was over, it was almost midnight. So that was like a 5-hour show if you think about it. And I didn't care. It's just, it was a highlight. And I had the utmost fun. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you. That's it. That was AEW's Double or Nothing event. And it has been a tough summer. It has been a tough week in professional wrestling as a whole. So to have this show and this Stampede match as the highlight in an otherwise very dark week, it means a lot. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be back here on Wednesday for another AEW review. As always, I encourage you guys to check out our gaming videos. There are more shows coming out. I think we have a new show coming out soon. I don't want to say tomorrow because every time I give out a date for a show, something happens and I get stopped. So there's a new show coming out soon. There are 2 shows coming out soon, as a matter of fact. Subscribe, share with your friends, give it a like if you enjoy what we're doing here at the Wrestling Space. My name is Kerby Rodriguez. You can live tweet shows with me on Twitter at its_Kerby. Stay safe, stay inside. See you soon.